What is machine data?
To me, machine data is really the data exhaust that every computerized system generates. So some of that data doesn't really have a human impetus, periodic sensor collection from RFIDs or across a distributed network. Similarly, human data that humans generate, if they do something like put something in a shopping cart or stream a movie, there's all of these different machine data crumbs along the way. Typically it has a timestamp that's sort of becoming the primary axis that a lot of people look at the data. It's generally semi-structured. There's some sort of semantic elements in it that you can suss out. It changes frequently. You might change the application logs, or you might change your hardware, and then the data is in a new format. It's typically locked in silos throughout the organization, so it's hard to access. And there's a tremendous amount of wealth of business knowledge that you can derive from it if you just know how.
You mentioned silos. Is there a way to aggregate that data into useful data sets to open it up?
Absolutely. So, I mean, at the highest level, there's really three things that need to take place. Sounds easy. The first thing you need to do is collect the data. So at Splunk, there are three different things you can do to collect the data. You can put a little collector on all of your production nodes that reliably and efficiently pulls the data in. You can accept a streaming network input, anything that you can send across the network, or you can run scripts that will pull devices that you might not be able to get bits on. Those are really the three main ways out there to collect the data. Then you need to store it in a centralized location. Obviously, if we're talking about big data, this generally means a distributed environment where you have the right amount of computation and storage so that you can churn through all the data. You also have to make some decisions. Do you want to schematize the data? It's changing very frequently. You have to make the trade-off between what can you store and know that the format won't change, and what do you want to have the flexibility to define at a later time. And then you need to be able to operate on the data. You need to have programmatic level access. You need to have higher level abstractions, perhaps things like SQL. You need to have reporting and visualization. And really, most importantly, you need to be able to iterate, because the first question that you ask is going to likely be wrong, and you're going to want to refine it, and you're going to want to refine it in real time. And if you can't answer these questions quickly or get an idea of what the answer will be, you're going to have to ask fewer, less insightful questions. So time is of the essence.
So switching gears a little bit, do you think the big data analysis is going to be available to people without a technical pedigree? And if so, when do you think that that's going to happen?
Sure. I think we're starting to see it. So after you get the data in, you store it, you make it available to the technical folks, you have a problem, because it's still machine data. You're still talking about IP addresses, HTTP status codes, things that just aren't relevant to the marketer that owns a website. So the first thing you have to do is represent the data in objects that are understandable. We've already seen this happen in a lot of vertical specific areas. So look at web analytics. Google Analytics does a great job of taking what is definitively machine data and presenting it in a way that a business user can understand. At the platform tier, that's much more complicated. So what you have to do is enable people to develop a semantic layer, something that provides that abstraction. Maybe the IT folks still own the ingestion, they still own the data preparation, but then there's a set of data that is going to be understandable for the end business user. And then finally, you have to make it accessible to them via the tools that they're used to. So they're not going to write Java, they might not even be able to write SQL. But if you can provide user interfaces that allow them to manipulate the data, then they'll be able to build reports, and I think we're starting to see that in many cases.
So last question, and it picks up off what you were just saying. What needs to happen for data science to be democratized? I mean, is it tool sets? Is it education? What do you see happening there?
Sure. I mean, I think the data is becoming more and more available, both in the private and public domain. Education can help. The vast majority of people are probably not going to take the time, even if it's available. And I think it's incumbent upon the traditional enterprise software vendors, as well as a lot of more consumer-oriented startups, to make the data accessible, to help make that analysis easier, whether it's on the platform level or whether it's verticalized. So if I have my healthcare data, there's an emerging ecosystem of startups that are just trying to show that data back to the consumer, because they're never going to do the analysis. But if the companies do the legwork, then people will finally be able to internalize it.
Right. Well, thanks so much for being with us. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.